There's a total of 95 super rares in the battle cats, and today I'm gonna rank them, from the common roster to region exclusives. Relevancy plays a huge role in this ranking, whether it be requirements to unlock their potential, how easily they may be replaced, their job as a specialist and or generalist, and of course, performance and stages, whether in early/endgame. All super rares will be at level 30, so with those rules out of the way, it's time to begin the ranking. It surprises me how Ponos allowed this unit to exist. Cat-based Mini is a terrible waver who creates a level 3 wave attack and a level 4 wave once true formed. By the moment you're allowed to true form it, you're guaranteed to have Craze Growth, which does 5 times more damage per second compared to pre-true form cat base. It has no talents, no abilities outside the wave, no cat combos. The only reason you will ever use him is if you ever roll him during extreme early game. So that's literally all he has going for. A genuine pathetic waver who though has a guaranteed level 5 wave in each hit, her extremely disappointing damage is so low that it can't even knock back a ginger snake. The only reason she surpasses cat-based Mini is because she deals more damage and has a bigger wave. So just like Mini, once you progress a tiny bit into the game, her relevancy falls heavy. Belial is an extremely underwhelming mid-ranger, dealing 2000 damage per second in a 300 range, with the strengthening making him deal 3000 once half a health. His short range barely makes him a mid-ranger, and what's even worse is that he has a recharge time of 51 seconds. For reference, a Seafarer has 2/5 of Belial's recharge time, yet does more damage than Belial even with strengthened. Just an extremely weak super rare. Sleeping Beauty Punt is a variant of Titan Cat, where her true form at level 30 is the equivalent of a 47 Titan Cat. This could allow extremely early players to have a decently powerful Titan early game, as she's cheap and her true form stage is easy. Though once you have your Titan surpass level 47, her usage falls to the negatives, with Titan Cats just not being good mid-game and on. Alan, just like Sleeping Beauty, is a clone of a normal cat, with Alan having the same stats as King Dragon. Once you true form your Dragon Cat at level 20 plus 10, Alan falls off heavily. The only reason why he surpasses Sleeping Beauty is because he's a clone of a more relevant unit. Also, his guaranteed lethal strike doesn't make him better, as he has one less knockback compared to Dragon Cat. The worst Brainwashed cat in the game. Brainwashed X aims to be a Traitless meatshield who can guarantee a curse against him for full uptime. That curse ability can be thrown out the window since his health is too low for the cost of 300. His only usage is early game, where that strong against can be put to good use for the weak peons. Eastern Naneko is a genuine pathetic ranged critter, which she only has a 10% chance to land a crit. Since she has a range of 310, which is above average for a critter, she can be used to eventually land a crit every now and then, though she shouldn't be your only critter if you encounter metals. That true form can be ignored as it requires a gold seed, which is a late game cat fruit, so once you obtain that, you're gonna have far better anti-metal crowd controller. Aura is a melee black crowd controller. If you hear melee black crowd controller, then you know what I'm gonna say. Yes, Bomber Cat easily replaces her with not only a guaranteed chance to activate an ability, but with a better ability overall. Knockback is questionable, as blacks are known for having a high knockback count, and then the ones that have a low one outrange her. Her only usage is to be a decent melee for early game. Reaper is a weird unit, as he isn't good during Empire of Cats due to his B form being terrible, nor is he good once you reach Cats of the Cosmos or late Stories of Legend. He's good during Into the Future, where you can now get cat fruits, though can't unlock Bomberman yet. If you have him during that part of the game, he can be a semi-decent black crowd controller, but that gap where he can strive is the only real usage he can have. SV001 is similar to pre-true form Figure Skating Cat, where they are a mid-range damage dealer. As just said, it's similar to Figure Skating Cat, which is a common super rare, so odds are you probably have them. Though if you don't have Figure Skating Cat and are in early game, he can be an area attack version of Gross Cat during that part of the game. Kirsten Naneko is a variant of Naneko, whose special ability is having area attack rather than single, though in return for a shorter range. The trade-off of range for area isn't too bad, as 220 is still a range where you can outrange all common metals. The main problem with her is, just like other Nanekos, her crit chance is way too low, especially for her attack frequency. She's only usable in early game with those few metal stages, but that's about it. Aloyus is a mid-range angel crowd controller who has a 20% chance to knock back angels with his area attack. Just like how Bomberman outclasses melee black crowd controllers, talented Sanso outclasses melee angel crowd controllers. Though before talenting Sanso, he can be an okayish crowd controller. Little Cairo is a melee floating crowd controller, good during early game as floating is a common trait and she deals a good amount of damage, though after early game and receiving Sanso, she's non-existent. Detroit is a mid-range red and black crowd controller, good during early game where there's little competition with red and black. He's even more usable as those traits are common during that period. Though later in game, his fragile stats are too risky as there's better replacements for him. Valentine's the Nico guarantees a level 2 mini wave with a 10% chance of a critical hit. Her true form can be ignored as it's one of the most jaw-dropping requirements, needing a gold cat fruit and seed, and 2 aku fruits. For a true form, she's an okay critter, though her chance to land one is too low even with her attack frequency. If you don't have other critters during early game, then here you go. Marie is a mid-range anti-floating who's strong against them. I'ma say this now, Cameraman replaces her even before true form, and Murkat is one of the easier replacements to obtain, so there's really no room for Marie to show her usage before she gets heavily outclassed. So you can pair the two up and Marie can help Cameraman a bit, though it's just best to use Cameraman himself. Frenya is an angel and black crowd controller who has a chance to slow them. With a range of 400, you'd think she'd outclass Sansa and Bomberman, but her stats are too weak where even bringing those two is a better and safer option. She has an attack frequency of 7 seconds with a 40% chance of slowing them. Sure, she has a semi-fast cooldown, though her weak stats such as health and extremely pathetic damage just make her not worth it, so she's one of the better options before you obtain those two. Brainwashed Cowcat is the most underwhelming cow out of all the variants. His uniqueness is being able to guarantee a curse against Black and Aku. He fails as a crowd controller compared to other units because curse is an ability that removes an enemy's debuff, not their ability to attack, such as knockback or freeze. Also, Aku and Black are bad choices as neither have many melee debuffing enemies, so when Brainwashed Cow lands his hit, he'll still die, easily wasting you 750. He's best used as an early game Crazed Cow before actually getting Crazed Cow. Pile Driver is a zombie crowd controller with a 3-part multi-hit that guarantees a knockback in each hit. Due to his long recharge time of 41, it's just best to use Weightlifter Cat as he's more spammable, which is extremely important for zombie stages. Crazed Axe Cat is well known for being the worst Crazed Cat. His expensive cost makes him a terrible meat shield, making him only okay against pure red stages, which will probably bring way better anti-reds. What saves him is his role in the Crazy Hearts combo for early game and his usage for unkept promises. A slightly better version of Valentine's the Nico as a critter, though the real reason you'll be bringing him onto the loadout is for that small crit up combo. Outside of that, he's still a bad metal critter. Kodomine and Gilgamesh Cats are a low mid-range crowd controller for blacks on his first form and zombies on his second form. He also increases his damage by 50% once half the health. Bomberman outclasses the first form, though his second form he can be an okay-ish zombie weakener. Of course, Thaumaturge outclasses them, but his area attack and even potential damage dealing can sometimes outclass him, though their long attack animation can be a huge drawback. Ritsuko is a mid-range alien crowd controller who deals a decent amount of damage with a chance of weakening angels for all her uptime. She's simply a specialist version of Thaumaturge for aliens. She's fine and she can crowd control the aliens in a shorter range, though that's all she does. Cat Toaster, simply put, is an underwhelming angel crowd controller, with only a 30% chance of slowing angels and a 20% chance of breaking barriers. He fails at both roles, especially with the slow angels once Sansa's talented. Though he has a lower range than Frenya, he has a faster attack frequency and a way better uptime for angels. Still, both super rares suck at their job. C. Honda is the short-range tanker against angels. Ramen clearly takes his place, though his immune to knockback and slow can be good for counters against angels that do those debuffs, such as Sunfish and Sleep Near, which both are common. Plus, bringing both can be a good option in stages where angels are pushing hard, though those scenarios are semi-rare, and most would prefer using that slot on something else rather than a worth Ramen. Well known for being a bad unit, Bodhisattva Cat is a floating crowd controller who has a 40% chance to slow and a 30% chance to weaken floatings for more than his uptime. As his range is 300, Sanso can mostly do the same job as him. In those instances where Sanso can't, Bodhisattva does a fine job against floating, though his concerning 40% second recharge time draws him back heavily. Asuka is a mid-range unit who's strong against red and has a 40% chance to knock back. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with her, it's simply that anti-reds have such a high competition even when you're in mid-game. Her stats aren't at the level as other anti-reds, so she can still have some usage if you're in need for anti-reds. Rey, not to be confused with the Evangelion Rey, is a melee damage dealer who can crowd control black enemies. Bomberman does replace Rey by a mile, though her actual usage is from her decent stats. She deals a whopping 5,000 damage per second with area attack. That's actually really good if she didn't have a recharge time of 49 seconds, though just like others, she's best used in early game and does a good job doing so. Mako and Cat is a short-range unit who has a long distance that can deal massive damage against red. Courier easily replaces her, though before unlocking him, she can do a good job against red. After unlocking Courier, she's just user rank. Delinquent is a melee floating freezer, and eventually relic freezer once true form. His range of 280 makes his usage for freezing relics extremely low, as most relic enemies have a long range. Not only that, his chance for freezing is too low, even with his 3-part multi-hit. Against floating, he's okay, but it's best to use a unit you can rely on, such as Sansa, which is more spammable. Speaking of spammability, he has a concerning cooldown of 34 seconds. You can still make him work, as floating is a common yet demanding enemy trait to target, and the freeze time isn't bad, with a 75% uptime, though his cons outweigh his pros heavily. They try to make him a damage dealer with talents by giving him Savage Blow and Strengthen, but his cooldown closes that door of opportunity. Catway aims to be a cyborg specialist towards Red, Black, and Angel, which is strong against them. There is a decent amount of stages with all 3 traits, and he does a good enough damage towards them for his range, though honestly it's best to just bring units that aim towards one trait and perform a way better job. Misato is a mid-range barrier breaker and an alien crowd controller. She strives most in Into the Future and Castle of the Cosmos restriction, though honestly it's better to just bring 2 units that can do one of Misato's roles. Though if you're not given those units yet, her slow isn't that bad considering her recharge time and health. Gouda Gouda aims to be a clone of Pizza Cat. Of course, all of Gouda's stats are worse, though before true forming Pizza Cat, he can be a decent replacement for early to mid-early game. Though after you get Pizza Cat, you'll have 0 reason to bring both of them, let alone just Gouda. Brainwashed Titan Cat is literally just a clone of Titan Cat, with a 20% chance to land a Savage Blow, and once true formed, have a roster of immunity. Every variant of Titan Cat strives in early game, and this one is no different. You can pair him up with Crazed and normal Titans to have a bunch of Titans for those specific stages that they can strive in, though that's about it for him. Basscat is a ranged massive damage dealer against Red. Just like the previously mentioned common super rares, his recharge time is what hinders his relevancy. His single attack doesn't make him any better. It's best to use him early in game, since he's in the common gacha roles, so you're most likely to have him during that era. Crazed Titan is a frontline tanker who has a 50% chance to create a level 10 wave attack, making him the unit with the highest attack level from any cat. Crazed Titan barely clears Brainwash, as his stats during the era where you use them again, around W of Dead and Queen Bee, are better than Brainwash. Other than that, same story with all Titans. Yurinchi is the mid-range damage dealer against Angels. He's strong against them, making his stats pretty good for a super rare. Since his cat fruit evolution is just 3 yellow cat fruits, it's easy to unlock his true form, which is extremely good for early game. Though of course, Ponos had to nerf him heavily by giving him a recharge time of 54 seconds. The near minute recharge time along with a range of 340 means that you'll be lucky to have 2 of them on the field. In the end, Yurinchi is still a good Angel damage dealer, though once you get into the mid game, his recharge time really takes an effect as Angels get stronger, requiring more damage. Kyuubi is an alien meatshield whose resistance against them with half a chance of surviving a lethal strike. For the recharge time, cost, and health he has, Kyuubi does a good job taking their hits, though his range of 220 is extremely high for a meatshield, and along with his 3 knockbacks, aliens may be able to slowly but surely push back your frontline, so you can't have Kyuubi as your only meatshield. Still, she's a good meatshield, but Rover clears as spammability, cost, and range plays a huge role for a meatshield. A extremely gimmicky unit who has a range of 275, though his long distance goes outside of that, with it being 425 to 650. He aims to be an alien sniper with his resistance against them a 35% chance to break barrier, and honestly, he does a good job doing so, but his main usage is to cheese stages in which he does an incredible job doing so, most notably in mineral treatment and in life-saving shovel. Those 2 stages are the main reason he gets this high, as without Little Leaguer, they can be troublesome. In the end, Little Leaguer does a good job at cheesing. Aoi is a fun unit being an alien version of Courier Cat. This sounds broken and all until you see that recharge time being the time of an average super rare. She best drives in Into the Future and Castle of the Cosmos, where melee aliens are more common, so that recharge is a major drawback. Little Yaiko is a mini rusher who deals massive damage against floating and Angel. Yaiko doesn't really have a spotlight where Fishman can cover, though against Angels, he does a good job against the melee variant. While it's true that Mushroom replaces him once obtained, obtaining Mushroom may take a while, so Yaiko can be your little replacement. He's also given area attack, which is a really nice bonus. All in all, a decent rusher. Suntan Cat is a specialist meatshield who has half a chance to dodge Traitless for a second. His high cost of 230 and a slow recharge of 5 seconds for a meatshield draws him back heavily, though dodging Traitless is still dodging Traitless. He shouldn't be your only meatshield, that's for sure, though when viewed as an extra meatshield for Traitless, he can become invincible in those few moments when there's no meatshields in the front line. Baby Mola is a fragile version of King Dragon with a stronger damage, cheaper cost, and faster recharge time, with the return of having a pathetic health. If you were planning to use King Dragon in a stage where there is no waves, surges, or long distance enemies, it'd be better to bring Mola as he can be more cost efficient and stronger than King Dragon. Though still, Mola is extremely brittle, making even a scroll kill him in 2 hits, so keep that in mind when using him. Holy Knight is a mid-range sniper who can deal massive damage against Black and Angel. When applied, he deals 9,000 damage with a pierce of 125. That sounds amazing, and it is, though his recharge time of 48 seconds and cost of 2,700, which is extremely high for a super rare, holds most of the potential Alibaba could have. Still, he's a really good damage dealer, though could have been more if it wasn't for his con. Lifeguard Cats is a decent Traitless crowd control with a 40% chance to slow them for 4 seconds. They're given long distance with a 150 outer and 100 inner, which both are good. Their immunity to waves allows them to do their job for those Traitless that causes waves, which is really nice. The problem with them is their standing range and health, both being too low, thus making them fragile and die early in some instances where you bring them. That immunity to waves saves them by a mile though. Also, their true form where they're given Behemoth Slayer is worthless, as they're still too fragile, and the only Behemoth Traitless they can slow is Cumulus, which has 5 less range to them, which is not worth the risk. All in all, an okayish Traitless crowd controller. Brainwashed Bird is a melee treatless killer, dealing massive damage against them with half a chance of creating a level 2 mini wave and a guaranteed chance to slow them. His range of 205 is surprisingly high enough to outrange a good amount of popular Traitless. Not only that, he's immune to waves and surges, which is really nice as Traitless are known for their waves, though surges not as much. For the Traitless Brainwashed Bird can outrange, he deals 11,000 damage per second, including the mini wave, which is really nice as it can be spammed with their 4-second recharge time. Of course, you'll be spending 975 per bird, which can be a huge money drainage, though if the stage has a good amount of money to use and also has a troublesome amount of short-range Traitless, Brainwashed Bird can really do a good job in those. These next super rares are now decent to use in real scenarios, with our next super rare being Hijiri Rokudo, who aims to be a mid-range zombie damage dealer with being strong against them. Thanks to her good recharge time of 19 seconds, you'll have at least one of her in the field. She deals a good amount of damage for zombies and can take a good amount of damage from them. She's overlooked since she's a collab super rare, but honestly, for a cat fruit evolution of just 3 purple cat fruit, she's a good choice to bring. An extremely niche cat that is extremely powerful in the stages he works in. Relic Cat is a backliner who has a single attack, though guarantees to weaken against Traitless, making them only deal 10% of their original damage for near full uptime. He can make an extremely powerful Traitless boss not even move a pebble because of Driller. Of course, this is situational, but even in stages where there is a heavy pushing Arost, it can be a plain walk if Driller is brought. All in all, if you find a stage where there isn't many peons and there's an annoying Traitless, Driller can put them in their place. Sunny Naneko is one of the few units who can guarantee a critical hit in each attack, though she has a long recharge time of 58 seconds and an attack frequency of 21 seconds. Still, no other unit, besides one, can really say that, so this gives Naneko less competition. If you need a unit to land a guaranteed crit, Naneko can get the job done. Fiendish Nero is a melee zombie killer, being able to deal massive damage against them. When the massive damage is applied, he deals 14,000 damage per second, which is a lot. His drawback though is his 3-part multi-hit, which can remove a chunk of the previously said damage per second if the zombie gets knocked back. That and his 27 seconds for a recharge is what draws him to this ranking. Still, 14,000 damage per second is still a lot, so if you have him, then spend that 3 purple cat fruit already. Juliet Cat is a short-range angel crowd controller with a 40% chance to freeze them for 4 seconds, which is more than her uptime. With a fast attack frequency of 3 seconds, you'd think she'd do an incredible job, until you realize that Sanso has the exact same range, better spammability, cheaper cost, and more consistent debuff. That doesn't mean that Juliet is bad, you can't just ignore a good freeze towards angels. It's just that where Juliet can be used, Sanso can mostly outperform, so no one is stopping you from bringing the 2 in, to slow and eventually freeze, which can really make an angel stage easy. Her damage per second is actually good for having area attack, but her attack animation can sometimes draw that back. Brainwashed Tank Cat is the specialist meatshield against Traitless, being insanely tough against. When the insane tough is applied, he has 51,000 effective health against them. This already makes him extremely good against Traitless, as he's the strength of 2 max manic erasers for just 210. The concerning problem with him is his more than doubled recharge time, 4.2 seconds. This makes him balance himself back to being as useful as bringing a max manic eraser, though that can be fixed with bringing research cat combos. Bringing them just makes about any Traitless not progress forward, as they have to deal 51,000 worth of damage each couple of seconds. This sounds amazing and all, but remember that he still has a raw health of 8,500, making any non-Traitless will brainwash tank like it's nothing, so it's good to use him in stages that at least have mostly Traitless. The reason why he isn't as high as he is for what seems like an amazing role is that brainwash tank can't properly work outside the situations given, and that when using him, you'll have to bring a couple of cat combos for him to work, so if you're willing to do that for him, he can stop Traitless from progressing heavy. Rei Ayanami is a short-range tanker whose resistance against black enemies with a 30% chance to weaken them. There really isn't any frontline black tankers besides Jetpack, but he's obtained in late game. Blacks are known to be some of the biggest heavy pushing enemies, but Rei surprisingly does a good job defending the front line. With the weakened resistance applied, Rei has 459,000, which is incredible. Of course, any enemies outside of the black trade can kill Rei easily, so she has a difficult time defending in big stages. Simply a good black tanker. Bisuki is a mid-range angel nuker, being able to deal massive damage against them. 12,000 damage per second with a range of 300 is pretty good with having no huge drawbacks such as a long attack animation or a multi-hit. She does have a semi-long recharge time, though that 12,000 damage per second easily outweighs that con. A generally good angel killer, though the range may not be the best for mixed stages. Deneko is a mid-range critter, though that can be ignored as her main usage is her given combo, Sister's Act, which when paired up with Moneko, gives you an attack up small, basically giving all units a 10% attack increase. This attack combo is extremely useful in scenarios where you only need a few units to get the job done. Of course, other newer cat combos such as Brave Cutter and Tiny Ancient clear Sister's Act, as the units in them are more relevant and spawn worthy, though the units in those combos are semi-rare as well. TLDR of Deneko, if you don't have the units needed for Tiny Ancient Hunt or Brave Cutter, then she's extremely valuable. Otaku Geek Cat is a blading copy of Cyberpunk, with the slow being switched for a weekend. His standing range is decreased, though his long distance is kept the same, meaning that it now has the 200 inner range rather than 400, though now has a 200 pure. The problem with Otaku is weaken doesn't make the enemy stay inside its attack spot, so thankfully, his true rise is when he's paired with Cyberpunk himself. When paired, you have two units who will slow and weaken the enemies that are damaging the front line. The slow can make sure they don't progress any further, while the weaken does the same if the slow debuff wears off. Of course, Cyberpunk does range supreme when compared with the two, as he can clearly do the job himself if you cyber stack in the beginning of the stage. Though if you have this exclusive super rare, using him along with Cyberpunk can make stages a walk in the park. Crazed Bird isn't known for his stats, as though he does have an amazing damage per second, he's too expensive with his high cost and short cooldown to be used in real scenarios. What Crazed Bird is known for is some of the best cat combos in the game. Land Air Assault, which increases all damages of other units in the loadout by 15%. That cat combo is the only 2-slot attack up which increases your attack by 50% rather than 10, which generally makes a difference in your gameplay. If you have 2 empty slots in your loadout, then bringing the Land Air Assault is more than likely the best choice. Not much else to say as Crazed Bird is just the best combo slave. Midorsaw is an extreme alien specialist who has a standing range of 180, whose resistance and deals massive damage against them, along with a 20% chance to break barriers and immunity to warp. When the abilities are applied, he deals 19,000 damage per second with 130,000 effective health against aliens. For the recharge time of 24 seconds and cost of 1,200, those stats are extremely broken. He strives heavily in Into the Future and Cats of the Cosmos, then once you're done with those sagas, his usage falls heavily. I'm not saying you can't use him outside of those 2 sagas, it's just that those stages contain pure aliens where Midorsaw can strive, while Stories of Legends has mixed stages in which non-aliens can whoop Midor easily due to his short range and weak raw health, and Uncanny Legends because of Curse of course. Though the couple of legend stages that contain a ton of aliens, Midorsaw will put that saw to use, just an extreme specialist that can slice aliens left and right. Goldcat is an extremely basic meat shield pre-true form. The once true form becomes one of the few meat shields to have wave immune. Stats-wise, he has no drawbacks for a meat shield, no big range, long recharge, slow speed, or high cost. He will simply go in the front when there's a ton of waves coming by. This makes him extremely useful in stages where Octopus Cat may not block waves entirely. You may question why a valuable role lands on rank 39, and it's simply because of a cheaper alternative to having an anti-wave meat shield, Little Mohawk Cat, who unlocks immunity to waves for 75 NP, compared to Goldcat's Cat Fruit evolution, a whopping gold cat fruit and 3 Aku cat fruit. Using a talented little mohawk can get the job done for the anti-wave meat shield role, though if you have the cat fruits to spend on Goldcat, he may be a better choice as he has a slightly better speed and more notably a faster cooldown compared to Little Cat. Same scenario with both Gloomy Neneko and Gold Cat, where they both have a rare role, though gets replaced by a more relevant option. Gloomy Neneko True Formed is mostly used as a ranged wave blocker, with her standing range of 310. She's one of the only ranged wave blockers that aren't a collab, with the other being Yami, so her role is extremely rare, though her big drawback is her 58-second recharge time, which when paired with her 15,000 health, just about anything may kill her. The most, if not all, would rather use Octopus Cat, who though has a shorter range, has an extremely fast recharge time where he can be more consistent in wave blocking. But if you have Gloomy Neneko, her cat fruit evolution is the easiest to obtain from all Neneko, so she can be easy to unlock and use. Brainwashed Lizardcat is a safe bet backliner who has a straight to the point 400 range with a single attack and nearly 3000 damage. What makes Brainwashed Lizardcat good is his good level stats. Other lizards such as normal and little need a lot of plus levels in order for them to have good stats. Meanwhile, Brainwashed Lizard can be leveled up to 30 and is good to go. In his true form, he's given immunity to waves and freeze. Of course, the eye catcher is the immunity to waves, as it makes Brainwashed the only lizard to have that immunity, making him one of the best wave immune backliners to bring into the game. In the end, you don't need to spend much time or XP to make him a really good backliner. Crazed Lizard is another safe bet backliner who has a slightly bigger range of 415 rather than the typical 400. This little change is the reason why Crazed passes Brainwashed Lizard, as it now has a better survivability and can now counter many Leboins, which will help you throughout Stories of Legends a lot. His stat leveling is also as good as Brainwashed, as they don't need plus levels, so upgrading him to 30 already does an incredible job. Most definitely the lizard you'll be using the most throughout your game. Cheerleader Cat is the best unit to use when you just want a guaranteed crit every now and then. Compared to the previously mentioned Sunny Naneko, you may think that Naneko is better as she doesn't have a long attack animation unlike Cheerleader, which having a long attack animation mostly makes the unit extremely worse. So that isn't a problem for Cheerleader, as medals are near impossible to knock back unless critted. So ignoring attack animation and focusing on her other stats, Cheerleader has the better standing range, recharge time, speed, health, and damage pre-true form and true formed compared to Sunny Naneko. Once again, if you want a unit to land a guaranteed crit every 20 seconds, then Cheerleader Cat fills that role perfectly. Rei Ayanami is one of the more underrated super rares in the game, since it's a collab of course. Rei aims to be a mid-range angel tanker who's strong against them, has half a chance to weaken them, and a 20% chance to dodge them for 2 seconds. When the strong is applied, she has 68,000 effective health. When the weaken is applied, 136,000 effective health. That health with a 20% chance to dodge angels while having a recharge time of 18 seconds is pretty good to be honest. All the while they're dealing a clean 3000 damage, and mind you, you can unlock all her potential for just the simple price of 3 yellow cat fruits. She does extremely well in angel stages, though what makes her lower in the ranking is her range, since yeah, it's nice to be mid-range, though you're not really putting that 136,000 effective health with dodge to use if you're not taking the hit, so you can view the glass half full and see her as a second wall in case your frontline fails to defend the heavy pushing angel. Definitely a really good collab over that some of you may not even know you have. Metal Cat is the only metal unit you'll ever have in your life. He acts the same way as your annoying metal enemies, where all his hits only count as 1 damage to him. He's given a health of 12, so this means that it will take about 12 hits to get rid of him no matter the amount of damage. You can take that to your advantage for stages that have enemies that deal huge amounts of damage but have a slow attack frequency. Of course, peons will destroy Metal Cat, so make sure those stages doesn't contain any of those or barely has any of them. In the end, Metal Cat is one of the best gimmicky units that you can take advantage of. Freshman Catjobs is an extreme specialist who's best used in stages that have little to no peons with a strong boss. His stats are extremely weak, with a pathetic health, attack, recharge time, and not even an area attack. Though all of that is forgiven with his extremely powerful ability, where he has a guaranteed chance to weaken a non-metal to 1% of their original attack for 76% uptime. Freshman Catjobs will have an enemy crippled since they'll only deal 1% of their original damage. This makes strong enemies that Catjobs can outrange be threatless. Of course, as said, his stats are extremely pathetic, so you must be really careful with him as he's fragile. He's a single attack, so peons may take the hit instead of the boss. Though in the end, 1% is still 1%. His survive lethal strike is actually really nice, as it gives you another chance to not screw it up. The search attack, though is nice, is best viewed as a bonus, since the spawn range of 150 to 1050 is a bit too big to be relied upon. Also, his beautiful cat combo of good jobs is the only studied combo that increases XP clear earnings by 10%, which is extremely useful in any part of the game. Freshman overall is a wonderful niche crowd controller in where he carries your team if he's given the right stage. Definitely one of the more harder takes in this ranking. He's one of the best rushers in the game and the best Cal variant of all. He's a cheap and fast deploying rusher, which is perfect as his 2000 damage per second will stack up. He strikes extremely good in time score stages, which Cal will allow you to earn most if not all rewards. Not only does he perform well in time score stages, with his cheap cost and fast deployment as well as his extremely fast speed of 66, he can be a decent emergency meat shield in case your frontline gets whooped heavily. Stages such as floor 30 of Heavenly Tower and Learn to Love are good examples of this situation. All in all, an extremely good rusher that will save you in stages and real life time so that you can stop playing the battle cats, you addict. Rich Cat III is another time-efficient unit who has an incredible cat combo that only requires him. Once you true form him, if you bring him in your loadout, he'll give you a plus level 1 boost and 500 cash, basically being a small free version of Rich Cat. He's a must-bring unit in stages where money is extremely tight, as those combos will help you in the long run. He's extremely good in cat dojo stages and once again, time score stages. Just a really good cat combo unit overall. Cutter Cat is a red rusher who deals 5,000 raw damage, 20,000 against red, and over 100,000 against them once the strengthen is activated. Cutter will take a chunk of a red enemy's health. He's given the ability to survive a lethal strike, so the strengthened damage will more than likely land, thanks to his 50 speed. Funny enough, what makes him even better is his range of 170, which can outrange Boar, Shy Boy, and even Berserkery. Cutter is also given wave immunity, so don't worry about Berserkery's waves. This means that he can land even more hits if the enemies don't push heavy. The drawback of Cutter though is his strange recharge time of 41 seconds, which is really bad as you're only given a couple times to use him on the field, though his red rushing role shadows that con. Final thing to say about Cutter is that he's part of the cat combo Brave Cutter, which increases the damage of the units in the loadout by 10%, which is extremely good as Cutter is already a good unit, so throwing Little Axe is worth it if you were planning to bring Cutter in the stage. He's just an incredible red rusher all in all. Orthos is an overlooked super rare who once true formed is a mid-ranger that has a 30% chance to knock back floating enemies. This sounds worse than average, but then you see the talents he's given, an extra 20% towards the knockback and a guaranteed mini surge. If you upgrade those two, you'll have a unit who has half a chance of knocking back floating and a guaranteed level 1 mini surge. This literally allows him to pierce floatings while having no blind spot, and for a surprising recharge time of 13 seconds, he can be stacked and knock back floatings non-stop. Not only that, he'll be dealing 4,000 damage per second, which is really good actually. The best super rare collab and an amazing super rare overall. Another hot take in this ranking, Fencer Cat is the perfect barrier breaker and a genuinely good mid-ranger. He strives heavily in Castles of the Cosmos and starred alien stages. There's generally nothing wrong with him, as he will go in and land a barrier hit. Sure, he only has single attack, but in return, he's given an amazing damage per second of nearly 5,000, which will be harmful for any enemies he hits. His stats are what people pass by as they view him as a barrier breaker and nothing more. Though after he breaks the barrier, he'll go in and take a good amount of health from other enemies. He's given only one knockback, which does more good than harm as he'll go in and land his hits without distraction. And his fast recharge of 9 seconds not only lets you have a unit break multiple barriers in a short span of time, but even allows you to stack a horde of fencers to deal their damage. Overall, Fencer does his main job good and does more with his clean stats. Copcat is a really good Traitless and Behemoth tanker, with being strong against Traitless and having Behemoth Slayer. Against Traitless, he tanks 68,000 and deals 6,000 DPS. Against Behemoth, he tanks 57,000 and deals 10,000 DPS. And finally, against Traitless Behemoth, he tanks 113,000 and deals 15,000 damage per second. Beginning with the Traitless, 68,000 can be put to good use as he only has 2 knockbacks, meaning that he can take many hits from Traitless without being stunned, and deal his 6,000 damage per second. Against Behemoth, his effective health is a bit lower, and sadly due to his standing range of 250, he gets outranged by most Behemoths, so 10k DPS is still 10k DPS. Bring him for Raging Gory and especially the Full variant, and he could get the job done. Now the real reason why he's this high is for his stats against Traitless Behemoths. Being able to tank 113,000 and deal 15,000 DPS against them is extremely powerful, and the enemies with those traits aren't even niche. One of the most annoying Behemoths, Wild Doge, is an easy punching bag for Copcat to take care of. Camilla's Gallus, even with the strengthened activated, still can't knock back Copcat. Papao, aka the Behemoth Elephant, is a bit weird as he deals constant damage, which can stun like Copcat even with the Behemoth Slayer and strong against. Though Copcat being able to handle annoying Traitless Behemoths and having an effective health against all of them makes him an amazing choice for many Behemoth stages. All in all, a cheap tanky unit against some of the most annoying category of enemies. Come on, an extremely good meatshield, easily considered one of the best. His fast speed of 28 and 0 drawbacks such as slow recharge time or expensive cost makes him an excellent choice to bring. And in some scenarios, Craze Cat may even be a better option to bring compared to tank variants, though that's extremely rare. Only do that if both tank and cat variants get one shot, such as 430 or Behemoth stages that contain 200% wild doges. Still, in the end, Craze Cat is a meatshield you constantly bring in your loadout. Good Luck Ibisu is a quirky little backlighter who has a 3-power multi-hit, with each hit having a 30% chance to weaken, knockback, slow, and or freeze for 1.7 seconds or 41% uptime. With the 3-power multi-hit and 4 abilities, you're nearly guaranteed to have at least one enemy receive a debuff. It should be said that he only has single attack, so if Good Luck Ibisu is protected, he can become a really good crowd controller in stages that don't have many peons. He'll juggle the enemies he targets as he'll constantly freeze, slow, weaken, and knockback them. He does have an extremely slow recharge time of 45 seconds, though his 400 range and 3 knockbacks allows you to slowly but surely stack him. He's also given long distance, so he'll make sure he lands his hit even if they get knocked back. In the end, Ibiza is a really fun unit to use that will make sure the troublesome enemies don't get ahead of themselves. Nymphcat is an incredible crowd controller against an extremely demanding trade. She has a 2-part multi-hit with a 30% chance to knock back Aku enemies. She also has a long distance that has an inner range of 50 and a pierce of 250. Those things make Nymph an amazing choice to bring for the newest trade, quote unquote newest, Aku, as when her knockback activates, her pierce will make sure many and all Akus gets knocked back. Of course, Akus are known for their shields, so odds are you'll only be pushing the front line where your other units have broken the shields. Still works, as it creates a cycle where Nymph pushes Aku, progresses further, backliner Aku is now in front, shield break occurs, hence and repeat. Nymph's knockback just fits perfectly in her role. Her talents give her resistance, which is extremely important, especially for death searches, and targets angels. Targeting angels is extremely good, as it just gives more spotlight for Nymph, as she can now be the unit to knock back angels, which is a role that hasn't been fulfilled. All in all, a really good anti-Aku and angel crowd controller. Applecat is a melee crowd controller against red, where he guarantees a freeze against them for 75% uptime. A guaranteed freeze against them, and mind you, he has an area attack, so that means 2 of them timed means that you can have the red melee enemies in the front permanently frozen. That is extremely broken, and there's no cons about him. He has area attack as mentioned, good cost, fast cooldown, and a decent speed. He will always freeze the frontline red, though that's as far as it gets him. Against red backliners, he can progress far, and he has no usage outside of freezing red, which is what makes the next super rares better than the previously mentioned. Still, permanently freezing red melees with no flaws is something to not pass by. Applecat is still an excellent decision for red melees, arguably the best decision. Soapcat is a bulkier version of Tankcat, with their bigger stats such as 60,000 health, 10-second recharge, and a cost of 1,200. Soap aims to be a tanker against Alien and Behemoth. Against Alien, he has nearly 300,000 effective health, with Behemoth 99,000 effective health, and finally Alien Behemoth 496,000 effective health. These numbers are extremely good, especially against Alien, though his effective health can be expanded even more as he's given a 30% chance to weaken, which doubles the effective health for aliens. Soap is generally an amazing unit to bring for Behemoth and especially aliens, making him an amazing choice for alien heavy stages. An amazing tanker for red enemies. Sushicat has a fast recharge time of 10 seconds, a really good raw health of 64,000, and does resistance against red, with a small 20% chance of weakening red for nearly triple his uptime. Once the resistance and weaken is applied, he has a whopping 646,000 effective health against them. It should be reminded that red are known for their heavy hitting melees, so Rocat is a must bring if the stage you're battling has a lot of reds in them. There's not much more to say as he fits perfectly in his role. His talents of cost down is nice, though he's already a steal for his cost, and his defense buff is a must invest, as he does his job even better with it. Just an amazing red tanker. Good job, Sushicat. Wonderful crowd controller who works similarly to Cyberpunk and works even better when paired up with him. Sniper the Recruit has a standing range of 1,200 with pathetic damage, speed, and health, though in return has a guaranteed chance to knock back a singular non-metal and slow them for 3 seconds. Now since he has a single attack, just like the other single attackers, he works best in little to known peon stages. With that in mind, you can treat Sniper the Recruit as a fast breaker blast with a 3-second slow, thanks to his fast attack frequency of 7.4 seconds. His standing range of 1,200 makes him difficult. His standing range of 1,200 makes him extremely difficult for enemies to hit, even with surges, i.e. Cappy, and that knockback is generally nice as it pushes the enemies further from your base, and no other super backliner can say they can do that. Oh, and he also has a single slot combo where he increases all knockback abilities by 10%, which is just the cherry on top. When paired up with Cyberpunk, they become unstoppable towards the troublesome enemies as Sniper pushes them back while Cyberpunk stunts them from progressing. In the end, Sniper the Recruit is the best super rare to bring in stages that have a big boss with little to no peons. Arguably the best metal critter. Cat Tornado with his fast attack frequency will more than likely crit the annoying metals you're against. What makes him superior compared to the other metal critters is that he can get the job done with no other help, saving you slots. If the stages you're in has a few metal enemies, throwing in Cat Tornado can get the job done. Not much more else to say about this guy. An amazing cost-effective melee tanker against zombies, who's strong against zombies, immune to toxic, and has a 50% chance to curse them for 2 seconds. Against zombies, they have 94,000 effective health and deal nearly 10,000 damage per second. All of that for the price of 735 is a steal, as he'll tank and deal massive damage. It's true that they have single attack, though that doesn't matter as much for zombie stages. Their recharge time is incredible, with it being 8 seconds, and their curse and toxic immunity is perfect counters for solos and Big Peg C. They're simply a cost-efficient unit that you won't regret spawning in. Brainwashed and Crazed Fish have nearly same identical stats, especially in level 50. So the reason why Crazed Fish surpasses the Brainwash is simply because of its targeting. Red is an extremely power crap trait, though Crazed Fish stats are extremely perfect for them that he becomes a top priority to bring when you're encountering them. Zombies does have a good roster of melee, though it also has some ranged enemies, more notably Cadaver Bear, Haka, and Lord Gravy. Of course, Red also has his good amount of backliners, but those are either weak or have a long attack frequency where Crazed Fish will not get stun locked. In the end, Crazed Fish fits perfectly in the anti-red loadout and is a great melee overall. The best specialist meatshield of all time, having a cheap cost of just 90 and the typical recharge time of 2 seconds. Brainwashed Cat has no cons as a meatshield while having a 30% chance to dodge attack from Blacks, Relic, and Aku for 2 seconds. This is basically a cost efficient matador, and with his recharge of 2 seconds, you're basically rolling a 30% chance die that will completely stop the frontline from progressing for 2 seconds. Of course, if there's enemies outside the 3 traits, he'll get whooped easily, no doubt. Though the stages that are mainly these 3 traits, Brainwashed Cat can essentially make it impossible for enemies to progress. As stated before, the best specialist meatshield of all time. Express Cat is the money-hungry rusher who is the fastest unit of all time. He's given a speed of 85, 20,000 health, and a short range of 140, so in return, a damage of nearly 30,000. In short, every time you spawn him, he'll almost guarantee a 30,000 hit, with earning you double the money of the enemy he may kill. He's amazing to use in the very beginning of stages, as it saves you money and he doesn't move until he's ready to deal more damage, which means he'll less than likely hit the base, which can be bad, as sometimes that spawns the boss early. His good recharge time of 19 seconds makes him a better rusher to bring in general stages. And as mentioned, he has the fastest speed of any unit, making him fit his role even better. In the end, Express Cat is the unit you'll bring when you need a cheap rusher. Swimmer Cat is an amazing rusher who deals massive damage against floating. Against them, Fishman deals 15,000 damage per second. This sounds amazing, though his main drawback is only having single attack. Thankfully, Swimmer Cat is given a faster recharge time than usual, 10 seconds, which will allow you to at least have one Swimmer Cat in the field for most of the time. His price of 675 doesn't drain your money, and surprisingly his range is on the bigger side of rushers, having 215. This allows him to outrange many melees, including bun-buns that are traded floating. What makes Swimmer Cat great is that he has little competition, let alone replacement for a rushing anti-floating nuker. Just all in all, an amazing anti-floating nuker that will save you lots of money and still deal huge damage. Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. If you want to support me, liking the video and subscribing will help me in the long run. Thank you once again, and let's see the top 10 super rares. Crazed Growth Cat is an amazing waiver that guarantees to hit all enemies in the field. That 1,300 damage per second may seem like nothing, but with his safe standing range in 30 seconds, you can have a few Growth Cats dealing thousands of damage per second from the front line all the way to the back line. Him being one of the easier crates to unlock and true form makes him the main waiver you use throughout the game, as you'll never find another common waiver as good as him. There's nothing more that needs to be said, as he's the best non-Uber waiver. Anytime you see an enemy that creates wave, you will forever bring Kotatsu Cat on your loadout. He's the most common wave blocker in the game, with his stats being adjusted perfectly to counter them. With only having one knockback, he'll make sure to block those waves without any distraction. He's given resistance to floating with a 30% chance to weaken them, which is good, as floating is one of the most common traits, allowing him to survive a bit longer in mixed stages that contain wave attackers. What makes him the best wave blocker of all is the fact that you'll have at least one of him on the field, which is literally all you want from a wave blocker, yet most fail to do so. His 10-second recharge time and cheap cost of 720 makes him not only consistent, but cost efficient. Kotatsu Cat is just a perfect wave blocker, nothing else to say. Vulture Cat is the best anti-zombie killer from the vanilla gacha unit. She has a standing range of 350, with a long distance that pierces 150, and has an inner range of 150. She has half a chance of slowing zombies for near full uptime. Since she has appears, she'll guarantee at least a hit towards the frontline zombies and even upcoming ones before they bury. Her 21 seconds makes her easier to stack than others, and damage-wise, 1,700 damage per second for a unit that pierces 150 is amazing. The Savage Blow and her talent makes her even more powerful, as they allow her to cost a knockback and sometimes a slow. Anytime you're in a zombie stage, you'll always have Vulture in your loadout, no matter what. Brainwashed Growth Cat is a mid-range sniper who can spawn a level 4 surge once true formed. His level 4 surge attack creates 4,000 damage per second to any enemies that get hit by it. Since his attack frequency is 4.2 seconds, you basically have a surge dealing that amount of damage all the time, which can be extremely useful to deal with annoying peons. And with his surge being able to spawn from 150 to 600, he can create that damage to even backlining enemies. That is nothing to pass by. 4,000 damage per second is extremely good. Of course, his recharge time of 29 seconds does make him difficult to stack, but with his standing range of 350, you'll at least slowly but surely stack him. All in all, a really good generalist to bring that can snipe enemies, which is impressive to say for a super rare. Servercat is the best super rare alien crowd controller. He's a short mid-ranger who has a 40% chance to freeze aliens for more than his uptime, and once talented, that 40% turns into 60%, making him even more reliable. He strives heavily into the future in Cats of the Cosmos, literally carrying you in those two sagas. He will make extremely powerful alien stun locks such as Nimoy Boar, Star Pank, and etc. Any short-range alien you encounter, Surfer will make them irrelevant. Generalist usage, he has the clean 3000 damage per second, good survivability, a good 20-second recharge time, and basically 4 times to reposition itself thanks to his guaranteed lethal strike survival. Weightlifter Cat is an amazing short mid-range nuker who can deal massive damage against black enemies. Against them, he can do an astonishing 16,000 damage per second. He has a good amount of knockbacks, great health, and his range isn't as concerning as blacks are known for being short range. With his good recharge time of 19 seconds, you have multiple of them in no time. His talents allow him to slow, which isn't bad, though Bomberman can freeze them just fine, but he's also given a 30% chance to create a level 2 wave attack. With his good attack frequency of 4 seconds and stackability, you basically have a non-stop horde of fat dudes killing all black enemies. Generalist wise, his raw 4000 damage per second is something you can take advantage of, making him a good short range damage dealer. Overall, Weightlifter is an amazing nuker for blacks and surprisingly outside of his trait. Figure Skating Cat is an amazing cost-efficient mid-ranger pre-true form, and a literal beast against relics once true form. If you roll him early game, they can be an amazing area demonstrator with a saved recharge time and cost so you don't go bankrupt, unlike a specific rare. Now once you get that relic captured and true form them, they deal 4,000 damage per second against relic and tank nearly 30,000. With a range of 355 and a recharge time of 7.2 seconds, that 4,000 damage will be stacked to 8,000, then 12,000, then 16,000, which will do huge amounts of damage to relics he outranges, as well as those that he can thanks to his health. His talents also give him weaken, which is a nice bonus to make sure that they don't perish quick. All in all, Figure Skating Cat clears Uncanny Legend and is an amazing generalist mid-ranger. Hip Hop Cat is the most financial super rare you can bring, with their cheap cost of 675 to not only deal huge damage, but once talented, get double the money from the unit they may kill. Hip Hop is a melee damage dealer who has the same amount of health and damage, making him land huge damage in each hit and tank a good amount. His slow against red and alien if talented is a nice bonus, as it's a safe 60% chance for 4 seconds. As mentioned with their extra money ability, he's best used in the beginning of stages, where his strong hits can kill just about any peons in one shot, allowing you to make a good amount of money before the boss spawns. He's just a unit that will go in and take a huge amount of chunk from an enemy, sort of like a bullet train except with a way better survivability, which makes him overpowered. Just an extreme steal for what hip hop has to offer. Praise Tank is the best meatshield of all time, with 0 drawbacks, clean cost of 150, and an amazing fast speed to get into the front line. The moment you unlock him, he will permanently be in your loadout for the rest of your Battle Cat's gameplay. Being able to take more than one hit from heavy hitting peons and not getting knocked back is something no other meatshield can say. There really is no argument as why Praise Tank deserves this high of a rank. It's been said, Nerd Cat, aka Cyberpunk, is the best super rare of them all, even Craze Tank. It needs to be understood that odds are, you'll have Craze Tank in your loadout more than Cyberpunk, but that doesn't mean he's better. When you put Craze Tank in your loadout, you're not going to instantly win the stage. Cyberpunk says a different story though. If you have Cyberpunk with a level 10 slow talent, you'll have a unit that will slow all frontline enemies for half the entire run. He has the 50% uptime. This is mid-Tamo level of slowing, arguably better than her, as Cyberpunk has an inner range of 400. And thanks to his large blind spot, you can cyberstack in the very beginning of the stage, which is basically spawning a bunch of cyberpunks before activating the base, allowing you to slow the frontline enemies permanently. If you don't have a low dopamine receptor because you scroll YouTube shorts 8 hours a day, being patient and having a group of cyberpunks will make most stages throughout your gameplay a literal cakewalk. Cyberpunk is the best super rare, hands down. We did it, guys! We ranked all 95 super rares. Thank you all for watching the video, and thank you all for 23,000 subscribers. It's really nice seeing a huge number like that in my channel, so yeah. If you want to support, as mentioned, subscribe and all, and follow my socials, blah blah blah. But I hope you all have a wonderful day, and stay optimistic, y'all.